Today we're looking at what separates the 4% of multipliers from the 96% of those who do not. And so we're going to show you why investing is actually one of the best ways to multiply, and it isn't just for the wealthy, but it's actually a powerful tool for anyone who wants to use their finances to impact the world. Hey, we are Bob and Linda Lotich, the authors of Simple Money, Rich Life, and you are listening to the SeedTime Money podcast. And we're in the middle of a 40-week series where we're sharing our 40-week checklist of the steps, strategies, and biblical insights that we use to go from paycheck to paycheck living to reaching our biggest financial goal of giving $1 million. Now, if any of that is interesting to you, I hope that you're enjoying this series, and please let us know if you are. But I'm excited today because we actually, for our email audience, of which if you're not on the email list, you should be, because we share a lot of awesome stuff over there. Mm-hmm. But anyway, with our email audience, we released a 3-part video series this week, and it went over really, really well. And so I thought we'll just share some of this with the podcast audience as well. So that's what we're doing today. And essentially what we're doing is tearing down a few different lies. And one thing I want to start with all this whole conversation is this lie that money is the root of all evil. And it's a verse that's so misquoted, and it's so misquoted that that it's not only cliche that it's misquoted, but it's also cliche to say that it's misquoted because it's just so common, you know?
Right.
But there's some depth here, and there's some aspects of this I think are worth exploring, even if we're all like, yeah, I know it's not. I know it's the love of money that's the root of all evil. I got all that, Bob. This is very basic, you know. But I want to kind of think on this a little bit deeper, because if we go back in our story and how our perceptions of money and wealth, like I came up very much believing that rich people were evil. I mean, I don't know if I would have thought evil, but just like crooked.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, if you have all that money, there must have been something wrong that you did to do that. Like, that was kind of part of my belief that I had. I'm not really sure where I got that. Like, but somehow I kind of picked that up in my environment.
I mean, the thing about it is no matter how you view money, there's probably a little bit of truth wrapped into your beliefs about it. It's just that it takes over and then it turns into a full truth instead of a partial truth. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what's tricky about it, is because it's like, well, yeah, there are some people who have done horrible things in order to become rich. Do you know what I mean? But that doesn't mean that it's every single rich person.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think. I think that's how those beliefs get into us, and especially from a young age where you don't actually know, you can't decipher the difference, and you don't really have any experience with both sides.
Yeah, and I think it's similar to, I saw this thing the other day where it was talking about mega church pastors falling. And basically the point that he was making that I thought was so good is, it makes the news when a mega church pastor falls, but when a mega church pastor
remains faithful.
Yeah, remains faithful and is righteous and does the right thing, like, it doesn't make the news, so no one knows about it. And I think the fact of the matter is, even though we've seen that so much, that doesn't mean, you get the point.
Yes. And I was, just for the record, I was so grateful to see that, because it was from a guy who said he's worked with several different churches and several different pastors who have just remained faithful. And it was like so refreshing to see someone talking about there are still people doing that are finishing the race to the end and remaining faithful. But yes, same thing, same idea.
And just adding to this, a little bit of a tangent, but we'll just go there real quick. So I saw an interview with Matt Chandler where he was I think Lecrae was interviewing him, and he was kind of pushing him back on this a little bit, like this whole idea of mega church pastor. And Matt said, here's the deal. Like, there are temptations and challenges that I think are present for, pastors of large churches, but I don't think it's accurate to say that those same temptations or other temptations are not available for smaller church pastors.
Oh.
And so it's just interesting. Like, he's acknowledging that, yes, it's a hard road to walk. It's a difficult road to walk to do it well, which I would say is any fame or any extreme amount of wealth or whatever. Like, it's a challenging thing. But But anyway, so I don't want to get too far on that tangent. So like that, or planes going down, and well, it's dangerous to fly in a plane, you know? So it's like, all right, so we're beating the horse dead. You get the point. That's what I was thinking. Like, I just thought, you know, I guess I knew some bad cases of some rich people and just assumed they're all evil, they're all bad, or whatever. And so when you have that mindset, of course, that means, well, I don't want to be like that. So I want to stay away from money. I want to run away from it. And for me, this meant, you know, the truth of it, when I kind of got convicted about this, when the Lord was like starting to like rework my mindset and my beliefs, it was kind of through the parable of the talents, and it kind of asking this question. It's like, all right, what's the alternative? You know, if you think you're going to run from money and do whatever you can do to not get a promotion at your job because you don't want to get too much money, because, you know, and you don't want to use the gifts that I've given you to serve more people, which the byproduct might be more money or a higher income.
Right.
Like, if you're not going to do that, isn't that kind of equivalent to the servant in the parable of talent who buried his talent? And, you know, and so like kind of when the Lord posed that question to me, it's like, oh, well, I didn't think about it that way.
Right.
You know what I mean? And this is why I think you have to take the Bible in its totality, because I was so afraid of, well, Jesus said, you know, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of the needle than for a rich man to get to heaven. And, you know, so you can read one verse and just miss the totality of what God is trying to say about that, you know?
For sure. Yeah. And I think we're all doing that to an extent all the time because we know in part. Like the Bible says, we know in part. We don't have a full picture of it, and we won't until we get to heaven. However, seeking to become wiser and understand more, I think, is the best thing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, it says in Proverbs, get wisdom, get understanding.
Yep.
You know.
Well, and then it talks about all the benefits of doing so.
Yeah.
In which there are many, you know?
Right.
So anyway, that was my belief early on. Did you have any specific beliefs about wealth or wealthy people?
Yeah, I mean, mine was more like, oh, we want to be like those people. I feel like there was more of a, I hope
A
one
longing?
day. Yeah, a longing, and also a misunderstanding of what it's like to be rich. Do you know what I mean? Just like, just like kind of like painted a really beautiful picture of, oh, they don't have any problems because they have money, and they don't have any worries, and well, it's no big deal for them because, you know, and it's just having our income fluctuated and having a little bit more experience in my life now, I'm realizing that none of that is true. It's all just the same.
Yeah.
It is all just the same.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, mine was kind of the opposite of yours.
So a pivotal moment for me was, I guess, a couple years after we got married. So we got married. We were pretty broke, I would say, those early years. And we honestly didn't really have much for a honeymoon. And there was a couple, you had been working at the church a little bit, our church at the time. There was a couple in our church who I didn't know much about them, but I knew that they had bought a vacation home, not for themselves, but for the staff at our church to use. And so anyone on staff,
and for friends and other
could
people,
go down and stay for a week, and completely free. They paid for even the cleaning fee for the thing.
Yeah, it was very generous.
And so anyway, so we took our honeymoon down there, and like, this is amazing. And then you were on staff, so we just continued to go down, I don't know, once or twice a year for a couple of years. And we probably went down there, 10 times?
Yeah, probably.
Over a few years. And
we really took advantage of it.
Yeah, I mean, it was a blessing that was available to us, and so we did. And
well, and I think they were happy about it because they didn't want it to just sit there vacant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you know, there was a purpose behind it.
But I think that was when I just began to see, like, some of the mindsets that I had about wealthy people began to shift, because this was a, you know, wealthier couple in our church, and wealth is all relative, you know, but like for where we were at that point, it's like, yeah, they were some of the wealthier people in our church. And I just remember being so deeply impacted by that and just being like, that looks really fun. Like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Like, but that probably means that, you know, I need to actually work hard at my job and not try to not get promoted just because I'm afraid of money, but instead like actually earn money so that I can use it to help people and to maybe God could have other things he might want us to do. Maybe we could buy a building for our church,
Right.
Maybe we could, who knows, maybe we could start a retreat center. Maybe we could, whatever, like as these thoughts
Yeah, you
just
kind of
began-
just start dreaming about what could actually be possible.
Yeah, and it's like, I understand, Lord, that there are dangers to wealth. Jesus talked about that. But at the same time, like, I think if I do this right and if I keep my heart right, I can be disconnected from it. It can just be a tool to use to advance your kingdom, to do your work,
Right.
And so anyway, so as I'm going through this, all these thoughts are kind of coming through my brain, and it's some major mindset shifts that were taking place at that point. Yeah, I mean, were you experiencing any of that?
Oh, for sure. And during that time, like, mine coming from a different angle, I think what that taught me was not all wealth is for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if we are going down this path, if it is still something that I'm seeking after, can I see it in a way that not everything that comes into my hands is actually supposed to go to me?
Yeah.
Like, that was where it started for me,
Yeah. So,
which is a powerful revelation.
yeah.
Because I think it's natural for human tendency to feel that way. It's just gimme.
Yeah.
At least it's natural for me.
Yeah. And so anyway, I guess this was kind of us looking at both sides of this verse, for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And just how that kind of played out in us and in our beliefs. And as that kind of, we reworked that, our beliefs in alignment with that. Because yeah, it's like the fascinating thing is, like, I kind of always thought, well, the rich people who are trying to earn money, those are the ones who love money. But it's like,
Yeah.
the truth of the matter is, man, I've seen some broke people who love money way, way more and are chasing and desperate for money way, way more than some people that are wealthier. And it's not just because I need it to buy groceries. It's just this, it's it being idle. So
Right.
again, both sides of the spectrum, there are people doing it. That's the thing. The love of money affects everyone, or can affect everyone. It's not whether you're rich or poor or in between,
Well, yeah. And I mean, there is that scripture about you can't serve two masters. You have to choose one or the other.
Yep.
And then it says you can't serve God or mammon. And mammon being kind of the representation of, it's a spirit of mammon rather than money, right? So it's more about the spirit of it than the actual paper money or, a credit card.
Yeah, because that's just an inanimate object.
It's an inanimate object. Like, there's nothing there. But that idea of you can't serve the materialism and the I want more and the security that you feel if you have more money. Like, all of that. And the thing about that is that can affect anybody, no matter what their pay scale is, like their pay grade is.
And
Like,
it
does not matter at all. And so to look at it as thinking about money is the thing that we need to be really careful of. It's actually not that. What actually needs to happen is the spirit within you needs to be pure. Yeah. Like, you need to be filled up with God and the Holy Spirit so that cannot come in. And if it's already there, you tell it doesn't have a place there. You know what I mean? Like, it's just as simple as saying, I don't want this anymore. God, take it away from me.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to transition now and get to kind of this next lie here. And that's really this, that I'll never have enough. Okay. And I think this could be, I think you could fill in the blanks with anything there. But to kind of transition or dive in a little bit deeper on this, I want to go back to something I saw, an experiment that Robert Kiyosaki was talking about. And I actually read this from Craig Hill's book where he mentioned this in his intro. And I just thought this was, it just hit home for me. And so that's why I want to share it. But he asked this question: what would happen if you gave 100 people $10,000? What would happen in 1 year if you give 100 people $10,000? Like, where would that money be? Okay. And there's data to kind of back this up, but he found in his kind of studying of this or whatever analysis that 80% of people would have $0. So you give them $10,000 and 1 year later, they will have $0. Okay.
I mean,
so
this is my natural tendency.
that's normal. It's like a bunch of money came
I-
in, let's go spend it.
Yeah, I would like to say that I have wisdom now and would not do that. But yes, go ahead.
And then 16% of these people would have about $10,500.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So these would be the savers, and they'd throw it in the bank and they'd get some interest on it,
right.
and they'd have $10,500 instead of $10,000. Okay. And then the third group of people, the 4%, he said, would have somewhere from $20,000 to $100,000.
How? In a year?
And so they would have multiplied what they have been entrusted
Wow.
with. So they would have started a business. They would have began investing in something. And what really hit home for me was when I look at these three different categories. So the 80% was $0, the 16% with $10,500, or the 4% with $20,000 to $100,000. There is an arithmetic function attached to each of those groups. So for the 80% who now have 0, that's a function of subtraction. So they are subtracting.
Right.
Okay, they're taking that money that comes in, spending it, and it's gone. Okay, now the savers, they are operating in addition. So that's 16%. Just added on a little bit of interest to it. But the 4%, these are the multipliers. Okay, so they're taking, not just adding to it, but multiplying it.
Right.
And this is really, really powerful. And I believe that this is what God wants for us to do.
Yeah.
Now, again, I'm not saying that everyone is called to start a business. I'm not saying everyone should be investing, but I think this is an important thing to consider, because these aren't the only ways to multiply, but they are two of my favorite ways to multiply. And we cannot get around what Matthew 25 says in the parable of the talents. And again, that parable, and I always give this disclaimer because some people say, well, it's talking about money, but that's not really what he's talking about. And it's like, I get that. I understand that he's talking about a lot of different things, but I don't think that it's fair to exclude our money from that parable.
Right.
And so this parable, Matthew 25, go read it.
That's our topic. So we're talking about it in the context of money here.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you have this wealthy landowner who delegates some of his money to 3 different servants with the expectation of do something with this, turn it into more. Like, I'm trusting it to you, do something with it. Okay. And then the 2 guys go out and multiply what they were entrusted with. And the master had really good things to say for him. Now, the 3rd guy, what's interesting, the master had really strong words for him, and he was not even a subtractor. He didn't go and spend the master's money, which you would expect. You wouldn't spend all my money. It's like, all right, I'm going to yell at you about that. He didn't do that. He actually, somewhere in between the subtraction and addition, he just held on to it and didn't do anything with it. And then the master's like, why didn't you at least put it in the bank so you could have done addition and gotten that interest on it? And anyway, and so that's always just like kind of hit me, because like you can read all throughout the word, like we have a lot of instruction from God to multiply. At the beginning of Genesis, be fruitful and multiply. Now, again, obviously that's not specifically talking about money, but there's something there. And even the illustration that we've kind of given with an apple, it's like this is embedded in God's nature and in his creation, is this idea of multiplication. This is just what he does and how he does things. And so the point in all of this is that I want to encourage you to be more in this 4% and to begin prayerfully looking for ways to multiply what he has entrusted to you.
Right.
Because again, like we were talking about at the beginning, the heart posture here is critical and important, because if it is just chasing getting rich just to be rich, so I never have to trust God for anything, or to fill up my barns so I can eat, live, and be merry, or whatever, any number of wrong reasons to do this, there are actually some really good and solid biblical reasons. And that is, why I've said this in the past. Like for me, I feel like investing is a moral obligation.
Right.
Because it's something that I've spent some time learning how to do. And I view this as a way for me to take, just like parable talents. It's like, all right, the master's given me a few talents. It's like I can bury them in the ground and do nothing with them. and just live off it and, pay my bills and whatever and get to the end of my life and die.
Right.
Or I can take a risk and multiply that for his glory and to please him and to be able to make more kingdom impact. And so anyway, so that's a little bit of evolution of kind of how my mindset is shifted with all this stuff. As far as the third lie that we kind of talked about this week with our email audience, it's this lie that it's just too risky. And we talked a lot about this in, I think, episode 17 of this series.
Right.
And so you can go back and listen to that one a little bit. We can kind of break down why this whole idea of, because again, like I grew up believing that investing is no different than pulling the slot machine.
Right.
It's the same thing. Like you're just as risky. Like it's the same. And honestly, to me, it felt more risky. And the fact of the matter is just so different. So different. And the more you learn, the less risky it becomes. And anyway, so I won't go too far in that.
Right. Well, and there's easy ways for anybody to do it now, which it didn't used to be that way. I think that was a misconception for maybe our generation and a little bit earlier, for sure, was just that it's too difficult and there's no way to really know. But like that's just that roadblock has been eliminated.
No, it has. But like I was reading an article the other day just about this whole thing. And it's like it should have never been complicated in the first place. Like it was a the industry created it, set it up in a way to make it more complicated. I'm not going to go too far down the rabbit hole with this. But anyway, it should have never been as complicated as it was. And even still, like now there's just so many people who feel like it's complicated. And honestly, that's why we created our 10X investing course, to help eliminate that. Yeah. So bottom line, truth is it's just not nearly as risky as I grew up believing. And maybe you have as well. And I'll just I just got to share this one piece, and we might have talked about this in episode 17, but I went over to ChatGPT, the AI assistant, and I asked it this question. And I basically said, well, let me step back one more piece here. So the average American spends $1,000 per year on lottery tickets. Okay. So it's about $100 per month. Okay. And I said, what if you take $100 per month and you invest that in the S&P 500 index? And so if everybody doesn't know, that's a basket of 500 of the largest American stocks. And, and so by diversifying like that, you're minimizing risk, because you could buy any one stock and that stock could go down to zero and lose all of your money.
Right.
But if you're invested in the 500 strongest companies in the U.S. economy, and the likelihood of all of them going bankrupt at the same time and you losing all your money, it's just really, really slim. And so that diversification is a safety net. But anyway, I said, okay, so let's just say you do that. And you take $100 a month and you do that. And, so like for these lottery people who are spending $100 a month on lottery, which is the average, which is mind-blowing to me. Mind-blowing. And anyway, so, because presumably they're doing that, not because they want to just throw money away, but that they hope that they would.
They think they're going to win.
Hope that they would turn that into $1 million or whatever else.
At some point, at least.
So if that's a hope, I hope I turn this into $1 million. The reality is, I go to ChatGPT and I say, all right, $100 a month. Let's say you do that for 50 years. Okay. And I said, what are the odds, and that the S&P 500 returns the same returns it has for the last 50 years, okay, which is about 10%, okay, give or take a little bit. What if it does that again, that same level of return it's done for the last 50 years?
Right.
What are the odds that you would turn that into $1 million? Okay, and it starts calculating. It says, all right, if you do that 10%, it should turn into about $1.7 million. I'm like, okay, that's great, but like, what are the odds, the likelihood that would actually happen? And this is what it said. It said, this scenario illustrates the power of compounding over extended periods, and it suggests that achieving $1 million under these conditions is not just probable, but almost certain based on historical performance.
Wow.
And I saw that, and I'm like, obviously there is no guarantee. There is no certainty. Like anything can happen, and we live in a crazy world and blah, blah, blah. I could get all that.
Right.
And past performance is not an indicator of future results. But at the end of the day, like that's why we've invested in the S&P 500 so much, because we have a long track record of what's happened.
Right.
Bitcoin has performed really well the last 11 years, and we have some money in Bitcoin, but that's not the same length of time as having 100 years of stock market data to be able to see a pattern and a trend. And that's what
Right.
we're going off of in the decisions that
Well,
we're
yeah,
making.
and just to, I guess, add a little bit of color to this, like this is how we live our lives, is based on past performance. We can put trust in things. So, we have a grocery store down the road, and I don't go to that grocery store expecting it to be closed. However, I know
At 3 p.m. on a Tuesday.
right. I know that there is a chance that a water line could break, or, there was, a break-in, or there was any number of things that could cause that store to be closed that no one was expecting, right? But I don't drive to Publix being like, man, I really hope it's going to be open. Oh, is it going to work? Is it going to work? It's just, we just have established trust enough with that brand. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's how to look at this. Like, obviously, all of our trust does not belong in whether or not the grocery store is going to be open, or whether or not the S&P is going to do well over the next 10 years or the next 100 years,
Yep.
to be honest.
Yep.
Like, that's not where our trust belongs. Our trust belongs in the Lord. However, just that idea of the established trust that we can kind of put in things that have shown us over a period of time, right? Like, I think that's a normal thing to look at here.
Well, yeah, and my kind of thing I would compare this to is this, for me as an investment, has been very stable in terms of being consistent over the long term. Meanwhile, when I've looked at some of the different crypto stuff, of which, just if you're curious, Bitcoin falls into a different category than almost all other crypto. But some of the crypto stuff that has happened and has come and gone, like I've watched some people, literally make and lose hundreds of thousands of dollars over the matter of a couple months, because all this money was put into this coin, it exploded, and then just dropped to nothing. And like that level of
Volatility,
but also just inconsistency and like just being unreliable and like,
right.
and just not being able to establish that pattern. And so this is just such a different thing. Again, when I have a century of data to be able to look back through world wars and Great Depressions and whatever
Right.
else, and it's still a thing. It's still a place that has continued to, over time, perform well.
Yeah. Well, and recessions, like just,
Yeah.
yeah. There's been a lot to look at
Pandemics
there.
and everything else. So
Pandemics.
like stuff is going to continue to happen. And anyway, so I guess I'm just saying all this for anybody who's like been on the fence and like, I don't know, investing seems, makes me nervous or whatever. And it's like, I get that. Like, again, I worked through all this because I didn't grow up with this. I didn't grow up with this mindset or whatever. But anyway, I'm saying all this to say that if that's you and you want to begin multiplying in that way, again, I would encourage you to check out our 10X investing course. I've gone through a lot of different investing content, and the goal of this course was to take someone who was where I was, basically knowing nothing about it, knowing no idea how to do it, what to do it, how to do it safely, how to, any of that stuff, and to be able to take you from there to getting to a point within 1 week of feeling confident in decisions that you're making for yourself, to be able to do this with or without a financial advisor. There's plenty of people who can't afford a financial advisor. And if you have a financial advisor, either way, I still think this is beneficial for you to understand and know what's going on.
Right.
And to be able to ask better questions and to really not just say, I just trust him, but actually know what's going on. Like, it would be better, I promise.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so we have that course. We're actually running a promotion on it right now. So if you're interested in joining that, we'll have a coupon code down in the description below. I think the coupon code is just multiply, the word multiply. And actually, let me check. Let me find out real quick.
Good one.
It would be good for me to know what that is. But anyway, so if you want to join us in the course, we'd love to serve you in that. Let me see what we got here. Nope. Sorry, it's podcast 20, and it'll knock off 20% off that course. So you can just go to seedtime.com/10x, and you can find out more details about it. If you have any questions, email me, Bob at SeedTime, or DM at SeedTime, and we'll answer any questions we can. Like, if you're not sure if it'll be a good fit for you or any, your life situation. But bottom line, if you are someone who wants to start doing that, learning how to do that, this course is designed perfectly to take you on that path and to help you become someone who starts multiplying in that way.
Right.
Because like I said, there's other ways to do this, but it's not the only way in the world to multiply. But man, it's been one of my favorite ones. And, I think I said, like the reason all this is so important is because this is one of the most significant needle movers for us reaching our big giving goal.
Absolutely.
And that's just been really exciting,
Yeah.
that me learning how to do this, going from someone who knew nothing about it and beginning and having a mentor taking me under his wing and showing me some stuff. And I had an uncle who bought me a book years ago. And I'm just thankful that some people said, hey, you should probably consider trying this.
Yeah.
And I know that you're afraid. I know that you feel like, it's just like going to the casino, but what if it's not?
Right.
What if it's not just like how you think,
Yeah.
So.
And it is exciting too, because, our dreams and our goals are not complete yet. Like we've accomplished some, but we have not accomplished all of them. Yeah. And there's always, new levels that we can go to. And that's exciting to see. I think it's exciting to see opportunity.
Yep.
And not just everything stay completely stagnant and just hope I make it to heaven at the end.
Yep.
Like I like seeing some growth.
Yep.
So
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, if you're interested in joining us, podcast 20 is the coupon code. Go to seedtime.com/10x. And I would love to pray for you. Again, regardless, like obviously there's plenty of books and courses you can take on investing. You can go get a finance degree if you want, whatever the thing is you want to do. But regardless of how you learn to become a multiplier and grow in this area, we want to pray that you would do that, whatever that is. And if we can serve you, great, but somebody else can, that's fine too. Don't really care. I just want to see you advance in this area of your life. That's absolutely the goal. So God, I just thank you for my friend listening right now, Lord. And I pray that you would help each one of us, because I want to grow in this more too. I want to be, I was just praying about this morning. I can't wait to hear, well done and good and faithful servant. Like that's what I want to hear. I want to be someone that when I get to heaven, that's what I hear. And I want to be one of these guys who takes what you give me and I multiply it and I turn it into more. And I do it with a good heart and I do it for the purposes of advancing your kingdom. And I assume that my friend listening to this podcast right now probably has some of that desire as well. And so I pray that you would help them, whatever their financial situation is, whether they feel like they have a lot to manage or not. I pray you help them to make the most and to maximize what they have currently been entrusted with, regardless of whether it's a significant hand or a small hand. It doesn't really matter. You just called us to do well with what you've given us to work with. And how we do with that depends on what happens next. And you're just watching to wait and see how we handle it. And so I pray you help each one of us grow in our handling and in our stewardship and management of it. In Jesus' name,
amen.
Amen. That's all for today.
Thanks. Have a good one.
See ya. This is what Sarah had to say about our book, Simple Money, Rich Life.
See this book? Go buy it. Simple Money, Rich Life. Please go buy it. I am 3 chapters in, you guys, and I am mind blown. I'm not kidding you. Go and get this book. I love it so much. I'm almost in tears over here, you guys.
And did you know that you can get a copy for free?
You can get it on Amazon, but we so believe that the church needs this message that if you can cover shipping, we'd love to cover the cost of the book and send you a free copy.
All you need to do is go to seedtime.com/free to get yours.